I'm Davies, and I've recently joined the Technical Standards Committee as one of the committee members. So that basically means that I'm part of the committee that looks at development of new standards. So we look at what's happening in the ecosystem, proposals that are made by different applications or developers in the BSV ecosystem, and then we look at which of these can be prioritized to be put forward as standard proposals, and then we kind of work on finding people to work on these as items and develop these into fully fledged standard documents that can then be integrated by other people. I've spent the last nearly 5 years in the R&D department at nChain, so I spend a lot of time thinking about BSV and how you can use it for various applications, both for payments, micropayments, and also data-oriented applications. So how can you leverage the blockchain for immutable data that can improve a wide range of different business cases. What I'm hoping to be able to bring with my experience is a lot of knowledge of the community protocols that exist. So there have been many protocols developed over the years that are some of them open, some of them are more closed and proprietary to different wallets and apps, and helping to kind of bring them all together and make sure that the TSC can make standards that are interoperable with all of these different existing bits of work and applications that have been done on BSV. So one of the main reasons for wanting to join the TSC is the fact that it's an outward-looking part of the community engagement in BSV, and we want to make sure that the entire community is well served by these standards. So I'm hoping to be able to bring a bit of experience working with developers in the community, disseminating information about different protocols, answering questions is something I've done over the years. So I'm hoping to be a good kind of way of getting new developer ideas into the TSC and making sure that we are actually serving the community needs, and we're not just creating standards without those inputs that are vital to making sure they're relevant and will actually solve real world kind of business cases. In the past, I've been involved in 2 standards as part of the TSC. So one on the envelope specification for how you can include multiple different data protocols in a single envelope specification packet on chain. And I've also been involved in the deferred fee allocation standard. So that relates to how merchants can use BSV more effectively and allocate fees either to themselves or the customers, depending on regulatory requirements. So it's something that's been very relevant to my work at nChain, and it's touched on both the data and the payment side of the research we do at nChain. And I think it's really important that both nChain can feed into those standards and also learn from them, especially ones that originate from the community. Things like the virtual asset service providers and travel rules. I think this is a really good way of educating all of us in the ecosystem about the different requirements of each of the businesses, because not everyone who works in one particular area in BSV knows about all these things. And I think the TSC plays a really important role of making people aware of the kind of things they need to consider when building an application on BSV. Well, I think the key to making sure we balance all the needs of all the stakeholders in both the TSC working groups themselves and also of all the applications working on BSV is to ensure we are fostering engagement with the TSC. We want to be doing more outreach and more communication to all the applications in BSV and the developers who are building new exciting things, and we also want people to come forward and open dialogues with us to make sure that we are aware of everything, and if there is a particular demand that's going unserved, that we can try and prioritize that. I think setting priorities is a key role that we can help to play in terms of which standards are more important in the short term or the longer term. So I think making sure we're balancing those different stakeholder needs is really a matter of making sure we're talking to everyone and everyone's talking back to us, so that we can all help to kind of collectively prioritize these things. Well, I think the kind of hallmark of something being a standard is exactly that it's adopted, right? So something only becomes a standard once it's widely used in the ecosystem. So I think what we produce at the TSC are really proposals for standards, you could say. And these are things we can put out based on lots of input from different BSV applications and stakeholders. And then, not all of these necessarily will end up being fully adopted, and that's something we can learn from. We can say, okay, in the future, maybe that wasn't an area that was such a priority. Maybe, things have changed technologically in the ecosystem, and there's been a shift to a new standard or protocol coming from a different source, which is fine. I think it's really important that we get lots of feedback on how much these standards are actually being used. It's not a case of wanting to push standards on the community. It's really just trying to make sure that when a standard is required, we can provide guidance and facilitate that being formalized, really. But I think it's fair to say that most standards are organically arising. Lots of the ideas come from the community itself, and they arise because someone's encountered a specific challenge and has solved that challenge. And what we can do is help make that formal, but the adoption side of this is a completely organic thing, and of course probably won't happen for every standard. Well, I think a really important and growing issue is how we have identity in Bitcoin, and how we can use that identity interoperably with all different applications. This idea of having one credential that can log in many different places is really powerful in Bitcoin, and all the tools are there to do it, but I think we're yet to see a very clear standard emerge for that. So I think that would be something that I would really like to see, is for a standard to be widely adopted in the community for identification, both in terms of payments and using data and the applications that are on BSV. So I think it's a big one. It's one that will probably take all that stakeholder engagement I mentioned, but I think it's one of the most valuable things we can try and strive for, is to have a standard around identity.